Congress has gone into recess without voting on legislation that would extend health care to 9/11 first responders. These are the people who showed up to the scene of that tragic event and helped rescue people, helped with the cleanup efforts, and unfortunately, many of them were not given the safety procedures necessary to prevent respiratory illnesses, and a lot of them did develop cancer as a result of being first responders. So, of course, it is an obligation, it is a responsibility of American politicians to ensure that these first responders get the health care that they need. And unfortunately, Congress has decided to take recess without dealing with this situation. Now, I should note that the health care plan for the first responders is well funded into 2016. However, the legislation was supposed to make this health care for the first responders permanent, and again, they didn't vote on that. So while they're wasting their time investigating Planned Parenthood, unfortunately, they are not focusing on real issues that help real Americans who are patriotic, who put their lives on the line.
What's confusing is it ran out at midnight Wednesday, but it expected to be made permanent before it runs out of money sometime next year. So, okay, it ran out, but do they still get health care?
I think the legislation or the law expired, but there's still funding for the first responders. So the sense that I got from researching this is that they'll still get the health care that they need well into 2016. But if anything, this is a huge symbol of how callous our politicians are and how they continuously exploit the tragedy that was 9/11 to gain some sort of political momentum or political points, when in reality they don't care at all. I mean, if they genuinely cared, this would be a priority. If I were a member of Congress, this would be my #1 priority, making sure that the first responders are taken care of. But that's not their priority.
Yeah, this is the law, the James Zadroga bill that Jon Stewart championed for so long. I'm torn on stories like this because obviously we have to fund health care in perpetuity for these people. And I'm certain Congress is going to do it. So the symbolism of letting the sunset date go on, the problem is that one of the responses when you can three representatives from New York, a couple of Democrats and a Republican, Carolyn Maloney, Jerry Nadler, the Democrats, and Peter King, the Republican. We never intended for this important legislation to expire so quickly. Once again, Washington politics got in the way. It's Carolyn Maloney has to say. But Peter King wrote that the failure to the failure to meet the deadline could send a signal that never forget 9/11 is just a slogan on a bumper sticker. And while I appreciate that, then it gets back to the same thing. Like stop. It's not about remembering 9/11. We're not doing it because of 9/11.
Right.
We're doing it because they came to help at a national emergency and they got sick, and it is the duty of a civilized nation to take care of its first responders when they get sick as a result of this. It's so obvious. It's obvious to everybody.
Yeah.
But still, there's going to be sort of using 9/11 to get stuff done. I suppose in this case, you're using 9/11 to get the right thing done, but nonetheless, it always makes me uncomfortable. It's such an obvious piece of legislation. The fact that any work had to be done to rally Congress to do it is sort of galling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you make an excellent point. I mean, if you are genuinely patriotic, you would want to ensure that every single American in this country has access to health care, right? But I think that there's an extra layer of just disgusting behavior when you neglect the people who put their lives on the line to rescue people who were victims of 9/11, to help in the cleanup effort. And also the fact that they weren't given the proper gear to prevent some of the illnesses that they're facing now. They have serious respiratory issues as a result of the cleanup efforts. And members of Congress, again, are neglecting their needs and using 9/11 to politicize whatever agenda that they have. And it just disgusts me. It really upsets me.